to Richard Akinola. He's, I beg your pardon, yes, Richard Akinola is a journalist and a lawyer. So he's got two caps there, and maybe help us make sense out of all of this. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Almost confusing us lawyers when they were here and just left us a moment ago saying, well, both of them had their case and they stood strong on it. What's the scenario now?
Well, I think that's the normal thing when you go to court. You have two lawyers on both sides. I mean, you have two different opinions. Well, to the best of my knowledge, I think INEC has done the best thing in the circumstance.
Okay.
By not putting anybody's name there, pending the outcome of the litigation. And I think with the benefit of Amaechi and Omeha's case, because when the case was going on, I mean, a lot of people felt that, well, we didn't know actually how the case would end, but the decision of the Supreme Court was quite novel, and because Omeha was the governor, was the candidate, and or if you look at it from the beginning, Rotimi was initial candidate. Yeah. Then before Obasanjo brought the doctrine of K-leg, then I think about few weeks before, I mean, the expiration of the substitutional candidate, I mean, Omeha was brought in, his cousin. Then subsequently, I mean, he was there for 5 months. Then before Rotimi, I mean, continued with his litigation of the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court, I mean, gave it back to Rotimi as the validly nominated candidate for PDP. Yeah. And the implication of that judgment basically is that is the party that people vote for, not the individual. So even a number of people are still doing some critique of that judgment, because a number of people feel that, well, how can Supreme Court say that is the party that people vote for, not individuals? But that's subject to different analysis. But the fact is that the Supreme Court's, I mean, decision indicates that it is the party that actually stood for election, not individuals. So I think going by that decision, I guess I never want to err on the side of caution, and I mean, instead of being touted as pro somebody or anti somebody, okay, let's leave the thing open until the litigation, I mean, goes through.
In an attempt for INEC to sound or to look neutral, I think they have actually caught the wrath of some segment of that particular state. But again, if you look at it, the way it's been going, is there a way it can be resolved when we talk about leaving the courts, the law courts? Because some are already saying it's going to be catastrophic for the PDP not to field any candidate in this particular elections, knowing full well, first, once upon a time, Bayelsa has always been touted as a PDP state, and that's also the state of what they want to call the party leader, who is also the president of the country. Well,
just like the issue of Amaechi and the Supreme Court's issue, there always a novel incident like this. So perhaps by the time the whole litigations, I mean, are true, the appellate court will have thrown up new doctrine in terms of who actually is validly nominated as a, because in my own description, I call it a legal force majeure in this particular, because it's quite unique, this circumstance. And I guess INEC is relying on the Supreme Court decision on Amaechi's case, that is the party itself, because
that's why they put up the symbol of the party.
Yeah. Okay. So because the Supreme Court said, well, is the party people voted for, whether, even though it was the Amaechi didn't campaign, it's Omeha that campaigned, but eventually said, well, it's the political party that won. But in any case, who says PDP is going to win this election anyway?
Exactly. So, but that's on one side. People have said that if you look at statistics,
finally he brought a new twist.
Exactly. It came up when we were talking about Chukwu Ikeji about that. Yeah. But if you look at it now, their attempt to stay neutral, as Sulaiman rightly said, it seems they've incurred the wrath of some segments, as it were. Yeah. The first lawyer said they had no right whatsoever to reject candidates. That in this case they should have put the name of Silva, who has been nominated validly, by election.
Which is one of the major areas of contention of Silva. That the first primary held had not been invalidated by the party.
Okay. Yes.
So it's not left for the party to decide that, okay, the first primary, is it still valid, or the second one has overtaken the first one? So it's not left for the court to decide that which of these primary is still valid.
I was going to ask you a very lay question. It might sound almost silly, but do you see the party itself just going out to campaign on the strength of being a party?
Sure, I believe so.
They can actually do that
Sure.
without having a candidate, because their candidates, their case is still in court, as it were. Is it possible?
They can. So, and I guess that eventually, if PDP wins this election, and the litigation had not been exhausted, I think at that time, I mean, if, the question will now be who will now be the governor when they want to swear in the governor. I guess the speaker will act until the day because, for example, in the constitution, if the president or the vice president are impeached, or the governor or the deputy governor, or of course the president, the senate president in the case of the presidency was standing, while in the case of the state, the speaker. Just like when they validate, when the court nullifies election, and they say, okay, in the next 30 days, go and have a new election, and the speaker takes over. So
wouldn't it have just been safer for INEC to just drop the party's name?
No. It won't be fair. It won't be fair on INEC because it's subject to litigation. Don't forget that this is a new improved INEC,
and they stated it there. Subject to litigation.
Exactly. Because so that's why INEC is correct in this position, because it's a new improved INEC. Because in Maurice Iwu's INEC, that's what have happened. Because if you read my book, I think I dropped a copy here some few years ago, The Politics of Corruption and the Corruption of Politics, which analyzed a number of cases, particularly Atiku Abubakar and a number of cases. So the INEC under Iwu was so partisan, and the Supreme Court in 2 of the cases deprecated the role INEC played in during that saga. So I think Atahiru Jaga's INEC, the new improved INEC, they don't want to be caught up in the political web. Like the previous one. I think that's why they're just being cautious that let's leave the two names out pending the outcome of the litigation, which I think is the correct position.
Let's explore this option a little bit if we can. Where you talked about the case which the Mr. Silva is also arguing that the process for dropping a candidate has not been fully complied with.
Yeah.
Now, if he says that I'm the candidate, and I will have people commenting on the fact that then if you say you are, why do you have to subject yourself to, or you tried to participate in the other primary, but because you were disqualified, and you now go to court? So
I think it's a question of political expediency. Because anyone will have done that one. Because if you say, well, I don't want to be just like what perhaps it's possible that Silva may have seen the body movement of the leadership of the party and decided, well, don't let me just shoot myself in the foot. Let me go ahead with this new process. Otherwise, no politician will be able to do that kind of thing. But the critical thing about all this process is that the issue of internal democracy. If not only PDP, all the political parties, needs to be strengthened, because today is PDP, tomorrow is going to be. Because I took the same position in the case of ACN. When they were doing their primaries, and a particular House of Reps member, well, the person is back there now, and almost screened out of their usual stuff. So, but because one had to come and say, no, this is wrong. That if you are supposed to be the alternative party, then people you will not be seen to be doing this kind of thing. So I think the issue of internal democracy is very crucial for democracy, and I think that's why this case is very crucial, because if the internal democracy is subverted by the powers that be, then we are in trouble. Okay,
because another point there is that if the party says we've got a process of selecting a candidate to present to INEC for an election, and that process maybe because they had a second one. So if in the first one he gets a provisional clearance, the governor, but a disciplinary committee was set up, and then he didn't get the ultimate one, does that automatically invalidate the provisional clearance to the extent that the second primary was conducted with which he was disqualified?
I don't think so, because even this the second one wasn't more complete, because I went through the constitution of PDP. I think it is the NEC actually that has the finance, not even in the National Working Committee.
Oh dear.
And so it's in the NEC, and there was no mention of NEC in the whole of this process.
Wow.
So
that's a scenario.
Yes.
Because if in the event that they say, well, the second one did not meet the process for the party, the standards of the party, it means, can they revert to
sure, because it's one of the prayers in the suit itself. It's one of the prayers in the suit that because sometimes when you formulate some of your pleadings, you ask some questions that supposing this is, then this one should be. So it's one of the prayers that even if this
one doesn't get
because that one had not been annulled, the previous one.
Okay. Sounds tricky.
Yeah. So
how can that be annulled? Is it through the courts as well? or through mere pronouncement by the nominated candidate to say, I no longer want to go ahead, I want to resign?
No, it's possible if you don't want to be part of the process. Of course, that's what I mean, and the party will gladly accept your decision. But part of the pleadings of Silva is that the court should actually decide that since the first one has not been nullified by the party, so it should decide that is it right for me to be excluded in this second one, even though this second one only NEC or the party had the final say on this, which the NEC had not done. So I think there's a lot of intrigues in this, and politicians with that intrigue, and now they just caught themselves in
that's
this
a
web.
Here.
Yeah,
because it means that even if the party says, well, we are the party, we have to provide the candidates.
Yes.
If he goes to court as he has done, the governor saying, well, yes, you're the party, but you have not complied with those provisions, the NEC you have is not the right body to preside over such things. Yeah. The court can actually say, well, I'm afraid you haven't complied with that, if they find that to be so.
Sure. So, I mean, I see it's a long-drawn thing because I guess at the Court of Appeal said that they should send the case back to the Federal High Court to be tried by another judge. Yeah. But PDP went to Supreme Court. Perhaps if they had allowed that one to, perhaps by now the matter would have been given accelerated hearing and it would have been decided one way or the other.
Is that in jeopardy now, the accelerated hearing case?
No, because PDP has gone to Supreme Court.
Wow. So is it possible then that I can go ahead with the elections whether or not the PDP has sorted itself out? Yeah,
sure. So when they sort themselves out, then whoever wins, because on the basis of Amachi's case, so is the party that...
Assuming the PDP even wins the election
assuming the PDP wins the election in the state.
Wow. Some tricky legal scenarios.
Yes. But it's good for legal development, actually. It's good because, the Amachi's case was novel. So I guess the Silva case is quite a novel too. It's going to enrich jurisprudence.
But if they were to look at it from the perspective of the party, it actually can be a win-win situation for them. But if you're looking at it from the person representing the party, it won't be a win-win situation for them.
Yeah, it's precisely.
Wow, it's tricky. All right, then we'll see how this eventually plays itself out. I imagine law students will be grappling with all of this and say, well, what precedents do they latch onto now? But how do you see all of this eventually ending? Any likely twist you see here?
Well, I think eventually there's likely to be a political solution to all these things. That's the way I look at it.
Not a legal one.
Not a legal one, because if PDP now sees that we may eventually lose out, and then they will just say, well, look, gentlemen, let's eat the humble pie and let's allow this guy, let's allow Silva to go, because Dixon is still in the House of Reps. He has not resigned. So you go back to your House of Reps and let this man continue, and himself and the president sort out their differences.
Assuming they always do have a way around that.
Yes. No, because self-preservation. Yeah. When the party says that we may eventually lose, because nobody actually knows the political calculation in Bayelsa right now. It's possible, in Lagos, you remember the Agbala Jobi and Sarumi saga. Lagos was SDP, but because of the internal wranglings, within SDP, it is Sarumi and Agbala Jobi. So Lagosians voted for House of Assembly for SDP, then for governorship Otedola or NLC. So the same scenario may repeat itself in Bayelsa. There could be protest votes. Okay, let's allow them to. And when the party begin to have the feelers that this may happen, they will just come back. Okay, let's allow Silva to go and let's.
Mr. Maje was saying that it seems that the party was willing to forfeit its appearance or forfeit its seat in Bayelsa State. You don't think that the party?
I don't think so. They can't take that gamble. They can't afford. That's the president's state, for God's sake. They can't afford to take that gamble.